What is going on, guys? Tyler Austin here, and in this video, I'm going to cover something that I think for some reason a lot of people don't understand, and that's just calculating your offer. But I'm not going to go into how to calculate your offer. I'm going to go into the methods behind why people say what they say when calculating your offer. For example, the biggest thing people say is multiply by 0.70. And I think that confuses a lot of people. Actually, I'm gonna put my glasses on right now because I can't even see nothing. I think that confuses a lot of people because they think that 0.70 is just this magic number that somebody whipped out for no reason. And it's not gonna be the same in every single market. 0.70 is quite literally for one reason and one reason only. That's for refinancing, okay? I am going to get into how to actually calculate this. This is going to be a little bit longer video. We're not going to cover all methods, but let's put down some numbers. We're going to do some simple numbers, and because I'm dumb, we probably will use a calculator. Okay, so first and foremost, let's just say we got a property for $100,000. So you got a $100,000 property, okay? How would we calculate what this property is worth? How would we as wholesalers say, okay, we have a $100,000 property. We know that is what's selling on the market. Okay, we've seen that within, say, a 5-street radius in the last 90 days, similar properties that are 3-2s with, the same type of maybe carpet in the house, not laminate. You gotta, when you're doing your comps are what set what you think that it's gonna be worth, okay? And I'm not gonna go into how to talk to sellers or anything like that. I'm just, where you get that offer that you're gonna make an offer and you know that you as a wholesaler are gonna be able to make some money from it or not lose money. So our comp, our ARVs are 100,000, and I think another thing a lot of people do is when they think about ARVs, they'll look at what recently sold in the area and they'll come up with a price of 100,000, and that those $100,000 properties have they don't have granite in it, they don't have nice hardwood floors, they're just kind of basic houses between that $100,000 $125,000 range, typical kind of class C type property, okay? What they'll do is they'll say, well, we're gonna rehab this property and we're gonna put granite in it, we're gonna put all these fancy things, these expensive things in, and we're actually gonna be able to sell it for more because of the fact that we're putting granite countertops in it, so we're gonna charge an extra $5,000. Quick, some advice on that. Be very careful on trying to oversell a property, because these sold for $100,000 and they sold for a reason. That's because that area, okay, doesn't necessarily have granite countertops. Okay, that's not an area that the types of homes there are gonna have that. So just because you put granite countertops in it, that money's gonna go down the drain, because the person buying it isn't gonna really care if there's granite countertops or not. They're looking for a house in that price range, and only certain houses are gonna be in that price range. A good analogy for this that I've actually experienced a lot in my life is, I like trucks, right? And when I get a truck, I want to put tires on it. I want to put at least 33 mud terrains or something that's gonna get me somewhere if I decide to go out in the woods. If I were to buy a brand new truck tomorrow and I were to put, a set of, let's just say, Toyo MTs on it. All right, Toyo's a tire brand. A set of 4 of those would cost me right around $1,500, between $1,300 and $1,500. If I were to decide right after I put those tires on, which cost another if I don't do it myself, another $150, and then a $50, bouncing them, by the end I'm all in maybe $1,700. I go around and say a month later I decide I want to sell that truck. That $1,700 that I invested into it basically goes down the drain, because my tires don't change the overall valuation of my property. That's a convenience that I put into it to try and sell my vehicle. My vehicle is now more appealing because it does have those tires on it. It appeals to a bigger, market of guys who now don't have to go out and spend that money themselves. So if you're dealing in this market range and you're gonna rehab a property and you decide to put granite countertops in it, you're doing that almost at the convenience of yourself, like at your expense, because it's gonna be a bigger selling point. It's not necessarily gonna raise and make a $100,000 property all of a sudden worth $125,000. There is things, however, that you can do. So for example, if this was a $100,000 property, but it didn't have a garage, okay, and the ones with garages were comping for like 150,000, then you could put like a garage up for maybe 15, 20 grand, and you could increase your overall valuation, you know, by 50 grand. So now you have $25,000 extra that you could probably put in your pocket. So I just wanted to cover that real quick when thinking about comps, and I'll do another video where I actually go into Zillow and I show the comps and how to do them. But this video is more so just to get your mind right when thinking about properties and you're thinking about, you know, going to look at a property for a wholesale. And I think it'll be a good preemptive video before I actually show you how to pull those comps in Zillow or the MLS or whatever you're using. So we're just gonna assume we already have this $100,000 property. I've already looked up the last three. And that's as far as we're gonna go there. So what does the 0.70 mean? What does 0.70 mean? What 0.70 means is that we're gonna automatically just deduct 30% from this value. So because we used even numbers here, that's gonna be $70,000. Right away, right off the bat, we know that our offer is gonna be $70,000. Is that true or not true in all cases? Absolutely not. Why is that not true in all cases? Why do we choose 70%? Why? What's the reasoning behind it? Nobody that I talk to ever explains the proper way of this. And it's not the people that I talk to that know what they're talking about. It's the people that I talk to that are new that don't actually know, right? So the reason we choose 70% is because 70% is a typical refinancing of LTV, loan to value, that a bank will do. So if I buy this property, let's just say I buy this property tomorrow with cash, and I want to go and I want to get all my cash back, I need to be able to have this $100,000 property for at least $70,000, pay it cash, and then be able to tomorrow go to a bank and say, I need to refinance this property. They will only refinance me up to 70%. So generally the 70% figure is used in two ways. First way, it gives the ability for someone who wants to do this as a rental. Let's just say it's a turnkey rental. If this was a turnkey rental, it didn't need a rehab, it didn't need anything, and the rental rates were right and everything lined up, we'll cover that in another video, I could offer, you know, 60%, sell it to a buy and hold investor for 70%, and I bought it at 60% on the dollar, so I can make 10%, so I'd make 10 grand. So you gotta know what your buyers are. You gotta know what type of market that is in. You gotta know, is this property a rehab or is it a buy and hold? Do I have a bigger buy and hold, you know, buyers list, or don't I? So a lot of people will lose deals because they right away, they see the formula, right? The formula looks like this. So they slash it by 70%, okay? So right away now we're just gonna, I'm not gonna do it, we're gonna do it like this. So this is now 70,000. We're gonna switch colors now because we're switching steps and I think it'll be easier to see. So now we're at 70,000. Okay, now that we're at 70,000, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna deduct from here our repair costs. And I'm gonna do another video on how to truly like kill it with your repair costs. Right away, you can just have a contractor come with you and you're gonna learn, but I'm gonna show you an even easier way than trying to schedule a contractor with you all the time. I have a couple different methods, we'll do that in another video. Let's just say, for example, that this property is gonna need $10,000 worth of work. So we're right away gonna deduct 10,000. All right, we're gonna use another color. We're just gonna alternate between blue and red so we can see the difference, okay? So now we're at $60,000 of offer price. So now we're at 60 grand. Now we deduct our profits. So let's just say we always start out at 10,000, okay? So we're gonna deduct another 10 grand. So now we're at 50,000. And then what a lot of people do is they just take this 50,000 and this is their MOA. This is their max allowable offer in order to make 10 grand. They know that so their max allowable offer to make 10 grand, but if they were to say offer and they got a contract for 55,000, they know they can make at least, you know, it's just gonna start eating into profits at that point. You know, if expenses end up being more or less, you know, you could sell this property. If you got it on a contract for 50, you could sell it for 60,000 because there's $10,000 in repairs. At that point, what happens is, when I talk about, the 70%, what happens is, as a wholesaler, this 70% is gonna be the profits and closing costs for a flipper. This is all they have. You're telling a flipper, we're gonna do this in purple. You're telling a flipper that they only have 30% margin to not fuck up. Is basically what you're saying. Okay, you're saying that a flipper only has 30%. And right away, closing is gonna be right around 9%. So now they only have 21% of profits. And in order to, you know, what if this ends up being 15,000? It's going to eat away from this percentage, right? So what a lot of wholesalers will do is they'll say, okay, well, now that you've got your margin, your 10 grand, deduct another like 15% from here, from this 50, okay, which would give us what? That would give us what would 15% be? 15% would be 15 grand, right? So that would make our first offer, what is that? That's 35,000, I think. That would make our first offer $35,000. So what a lot of wholesalers will do is they'll make that offer, knowing that it's a $10,000 of rehab. It's worth $100,000 probably. $35,000 is their first offer, and they know that they can, as long as they don't go above $60,000, they're good. But you at least don't want to go, you know, you want to get as far below 60 as possible, because anything below 60,000, that's your profits as a wholesaler. And that also means that as low as you can get it, that means that if a buyer doesn't want to buy it for 60, they want to buy it for 55, you have room to do so just in case, right? This is how most do it, okay? I say okay a lot. It sounds so dumb when I'm like recording it back or playing it back. Let's go ahead and flip this real quick. Oh god, my fan hit it. That was probably really loud. Okay. So hopefully you've seen that. So that formula that I just did was 100K times 0.70. Okay, well, let me show you guys on the calculator. So if you do 100, simulating 100K times 0.7, that's going to give you, you know, your 70, okay? You could do the same thing by multiplying it by 0.3 because you know the difference, but it's easier just to do 0.7. So by 0.7, then minus repairs. Okay, after repairs, you're going to minus assignment fee. And that equals MOA. Technically, MOA could end up being the number underneath repairs, right? If you're only wanting $5,000, then your max level offer would obviously be that. But then you want to times your MOA by 0.15, and that gives you first offer. All right, so that's the formula. That's the traditional kind of formula. This 15%, you could use whatever you want, okay? You could use that whatever you want. Now, the whole really reason of this video is this guy right here. This number is bullshit. And I say that because it's market dependent and it's bank dependent. You have no idea. What if a bank will refi up to 85% loan to value? One of my investor groups, they go up to 90% loan to value, which is an amazing thing. A lot of times, you know, a wholesaler or a flipper, what they'll do is they'll go ahead and to double dip on earning money, they'll refi out and then they'll hold on to it for a little bit and then they'll sell it again, and they're kind of like double dipping a little bit. And that number's bullshit. It's dependent on your market. So for example, my market that I live in now, I would do 70%, okay? Because it's not as competitive. But if I go over into a market if I go over 10 miles east of me, it's a very competitive market and people will pay more for it. So I'll actually go up to 80%. And I know that banks, because of that market, I know that banks will loan to value. They'll loan up to 80% of that value. So this is the traditional way. This is my cash offer. Obviously, you want to get this as far as low down as possible. If you can, you want to get this thing for free. So your very first offer, this 15%, this first offer, in this case it was $35,000 at 100K. You know, you want to offer like 15 grand. It just depends on the situation. There's no really magic formula, but this is kind of the blueprint, if you will, quite literally because it's blue, to make an offer as a cash offer, okay? There's other formulas for this. You know, this is repairs. Repair formula. This will differ depending on what do you want. You know, the goal is to obviously increase this. You know, so increase your spread on your deals. So that's the traditional. You can offer what you can. You got to know your market to know if this 0.70 is true or false, and you also got to know the property. This is for a traditional kind of method. But I want to show you one more. I'm going to flip this another time. I'm burning through these papers like nothing. I'm going to show you another method. Let's do green. Hopefully this doesn't burn your eyes. It's super bright. Alright, so let's use the same example at $100,000. At $100,000. Let's say this is a flip and we know, we've done our math and we know that this is a $10,000 property or a $10,000 of repairs. So what exactly does that mean to us? It means that we know closing costs. Like I said earlier, closing costs average between 9%. You want to look this up in your market. Get it in contact with your title company. We know closing costs are about 9%. That's including a realtor. Okay, so you have 6% for realtors and roughly 2% for closings. Okay, and then so that's 8, and then 1% is kind of like a up in the air kind of thing. So just do 9% for closings, but check your market. Talk to your title company about what the typical closing would cost, percentage-wise of a deal. Okay, so $100,000. We know. Remember, we're doing this as a flip. We know there's 10,000 repairs. And we know that we have 9% in closing. So we're just gonna round up to 10% in closing just because it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of margin. It'll make the math easier for us right now. Okay, so we're gonna deduct 10,000 for closing. $10,000 for closing costs. And then we're gonna deduct 10,000 for repairs. Sorry guys, my handwriting is trash, but hopefully this is of value to you guys and you guys make it through this video. So 10,000 in closing, 10,000 in repair. So what are we at now? I'm just gonna use every fucking color. So now, quite literally every color. Now we're at 80,000. All right, so we're at $80,000. So what does this mean? And how is this so important to understand? And I promise you, if you follow this, you will increase your deals that you actually end up closing, because this method, the one beforehand, where you get down to like 35,000, so you're basically buying it for 30 cents on the dollar is what that means, or 3 cents on the dollar. What that means is that you're only going to be able to deal maybe 1 in 10 properties that actually come across your table. This is the lay down. These here, that method, that's the guys that just lay down. They're the guys that are truly motivated, but they're not going to be the ones that you're always going to have. Some people are going to want the max amount they can squeeze out of you, and you have to be able to make it a deal. We make our money in the deal, okay? And you can't just make shit up, okay, obviously, but you want to be able to do your numbers so that you know that a deal that is tighter and you're competing, especially in a competitive market, you need to be able to make the money. And this is how you'll be able to do that with flips. Okay, if it's a buy and hold property, okay, you need it to be under that 70% or 80% or whatever, because that's what a buy and hold is going to do. They're going to pay cash for a property, they're going to refinance it out, and they're going to be 100% no money in, and the property's still got a cash flow and all that other stuff. And we'll make other videos on how to, calculate cash flow and all that other stuff, but all that's going to make sense. So in the end, you're still going to be around this, but I'm going to show you how you know what your true max offer is. And it's going to be important to know your buyers in this situation. So we know that at minimum, to break even on this, if we bought this for $80,000, we could sell this on the market and break even. Assuming we get $100,000 for it, closing costs are $10,000 and repairs are $10,000. If you can squeeze and only do like $5,000 in repairs, maybe you'll make $5 grand. Or maybe at closing, if you tell the seller or the buyer that they got to pay all closing, you can increase some there. But we know that this is our break even. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna call this break even. That's our break even, okay? Now, what assignment fee do we want? Well, I always say 10 grand, okay? So I'm just gonna deduct 10 grand. So we can look at this two ways. This can either be assignment or flip profit. So if you intend to flip this, if you want to make 10 grand off the flip, you're going to have to buy it at 70,000 in order to make 10 grand, because we know repairs and closing costs is that, and right? It's pretty simple math. We can buy it for 70. So notice what I just did here. 10,000, 70,000. Remember before the 0.70? A flipper is not going to only make $10,000 unless they absolutely have to. Right? If it's a really competitive market, they'll skimp just to get their guys working. They'll make $10,000 profits, and I'll do it with subject twos and things like that. A quick 10 is awesome. If it's an easy flip, 10 grand, easy flip, yeah, sure. But most flippers want to make at least 25% of the money they've invested, and they're investing at this point. They would have been investing $70,000 plus $10,000 in repairs. So, they'd be all in at 80,000 at this point. So, yeah. Okay, so 70,000. So if you know that it's going to be a cash purchase, and you know that you have closing costs of 10 grand, you have $10,000 to repair it. Remember, this is still coming out of your pocket. This 10 grand isn't like I put it here, but it's still coming out of your pocket. So they need to offer 70, okay, which puts them at 80, which deduct the 10,000 from closing. Their break even at that point is 90,000. Okay, if you can see that flow. I just put the closing and the repairs first so that it makes it easy to find if you were to have absolute, no earnings. So 70,000 would be where you would want to, if you deduct your assignment. Now what we have to do, if we're doing this as a, if we are assigning this, if we want to make $10,000 and we're going to flip this property, we would have to offer 70,000. But we want to keep going down, okay? We're finding our maximum allowable offer here, our MOA. So now we know that our flipper wants to make 25% on their money. So what is 25%? If they're paying cash, if we got it for 70, we're selling it to them for 80. Okay, and they got to put 10,000 in it, so they're all in at 90,000. Okay, and then they have 10,000 in closing. So where do they make their money there? They're not making anything, right? So we got to get this lower for them to actually make money because they're paying us 10 grand here. So if we're selling this to a flipper, we need to do 90 times 0.25, which is 22.5. So we'll just say 22,000. Yeah, we'll just say like 22,000. So we know that. Let's just say they want to make 20,000. Let's just make it easy. We know that we at least at this point, in order for us to make a $10,000 assignment, for repairs to be paid, and for closing to be paid, we know that our MOA is 50,000. If we get this property under contract for $50,000, we can, with a reasonable amount of doubt, we know that we can assign it for 10,000. So we would sell it. We would get it under contract for 50. We would sell it to our end buyer for 60. We'd make 10 grand, and if they are at 60,000, then at 60,000, they will put another 10,000 in it, which would be 70,000. They'll sell it for 100. So if they sold it for 100, deduct 10, that's 90. They're all in at 70. The difference between 70 and 90 is 20 grand. Hopefully I'm not like totally losing you guys, but that's how you do it. You notice how 50,000, let me show you something, 50,000. This is only because we used even numbers here, but 50,000 would have landed right there before our 15% reduction. You see? So this was our MOA before. Right, so 50,000 would have been here because we had 10,000, 10,000, and so on. So, the reason I wanted to go through all this is going to be a long video, but the reason I wanted to go through all this is so that you can see that the numbers can be created in many different ways, okay? But it's understanding why you're creating the numbers. It's understanding the numbers in general. Don't just take it and do the 70% minus blah, 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 and boom, that's your offer. It's a great way to get started. It's a great way to be able to just make really quick offers all the time, every time. And to be honest, it's a great method. It really is. But if you're in a market that's more competitive, or you're really wanting to understand the meaning behind the numbers, understand that this is how it's done. Okay, the video automatically stopped, which means I'm over 30 minutes right now. So that sucks. Because that means this is gonna be long. It's gonna take forever to render. But that's it, man. That's the numbers. That's how you do the Maybe this would be easier in like a webinar type of environment, right? That's it. Oh gosh. That's how you create numbers. It's that simple. If you have any questions, please comment below. Hit me up in Instagram, Tyler Austin Original, DM me, and I will do the best that I can to answer any questions for you and help you out. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff if you found this useful. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you in the next video.